Hello, mate, to Strive Nation. We've got the #1 world transformation expert. He's a transformation coach. He's a bodybuilder. He's been in the business for a long time. And it's going to be focusing on exercise, movement, and cognitive health, mental performance. You know, we're seeing so many corporate leaders, executives, Kris, and it's been shocking to see what's happened to their mental performance and, you know, symptoms like brain fog and just struggling to think. And so I just want to really welcome you to the Mate to Thrive show. You're a legend in many ways, a writer, an author, a bodybuilding champ. I mean, you've done excessive, like so many different things. We do want to hear your story, but a warm welcome to the Mate to Thrive show.
Thank you very much, brother. It's been a long time coming. We've communicated and I've seen you for a long time, but I can't believe this is the first time that we're meeting, but I'm honored to be on the show, mate. Thank you.
Brilliant. So I want to start with that, and let me just give you a premise. You know, I know you've done Ironman. I mean, I mean, we're going to link to your Instagram channel, guys. You got to connect on Instagram with Kris. He is just a monster of a man, size-wise, strength-wise, just mentally so strong. He's done extreme sports, but tell us, Kris. I've been a person who's done a lot of ultra, like running. I've done ultra marathons, the Comrades Marathon. I've done over 40,000 Ks on the road. And I just get this massive endorphin kick. I love it. I love the way I feel. But, you know, COVID came along, stopped the Comrades Marathon. I stopped running. I started training in the gym more. And although I put on a lot of muscle, 7 kgs of muscle, I was 67 kgs when I was running all these ultra marathons. And now I'm sitting at 76 kgs and pretty much the same fat percentage. But I just don't get this cognitive enhancement like when I do cardio or I do anaerobic or I do zone 5 sessions. Tell us about your experience about what's happening with cognitive performance and exercise or even movement. You know, that can include yoga, tai chi, qigong, whatever it is. Tell us what helps your clients the most with regards to mental performance.
I think it's different strokes for different folks. So, you know, the feeling that you're getting when you go for that runner's high, I get that in a gym, you know, but I get that when I'm running as well.
Come on.
I really, really do. You know, I absolutely do everything that I can to find absolute failure physically in the gym. And that's when I get the success of the mental enhancement following. So for me to have that success, I have to find that sacrifice. And that's usually deep within absolute failure. So that failure could be, okay, I've just reached 20 repetitions. Now I'm going to drop the weight and do another 10, and then another 10, and then another 10 until I get to 80. And, you know, I'm crawling by my lips now if I've done that with legs. And the harder that I push myself in the gym, the better that I feel following. Now, of course, as I'm getting a little bit older, it isn't all coming down to personal best or the heaviest weight that I can lift. It's how far that I can push myself into those dark areas that very few people are willing to go. Because everybody says, yeah, I train to failure, but then they send me a video. I'm like, man, that looks like a warm-up. That's not failure. But we have this perception of what failure really, really is. And, you know, it's amazing what you can accomplish with the resilience within yourself when you find those areas. Much like, you know, someone asked me this morning at breakfast, what is your favorite biohack? I'd say, well, it's probably my favorite and my least favorite, and that's getting in the ice bath. I had that mental battle every single morning of trying to justify a reason why I shouldn't do it. But then when I get out of it, I feel so much better. I'm more responsive to you on this podcast. I have better mental stability. It's nothing to do with inflammation or anything like that. And I get that same therapeutic need that I need to scratch when I go into the gym and find that failure point. But being a hybrid athlete, you know, going out for my run, I still get that feeling whether I'm going for a run, swim, bike ride, or whatever. So I've just found that I don't identify myself to one single thing now, which is good, because if I was to lose that one thing, it's good. I can sidestep because, you know, I do a lot of extreme sports, as you mentioned, so I get injured a lot. So I can't always do that one thing, but I can find something else.
Sure. So, okay, different strokes for different folks, but like, do you think it's a genetic thing or I mean, I put on size, I feel good if I do a hard training session. Sometimes I think I'm going to full failure, and maybe that's where you need a coach to really push you and take a video. I mean, that's pretty helpful. But do you think it's just a genetic thing, or, you know, because I can run out of zone 2, zone 3, and I can tell you that morning I can do a keynote, I can do a workshop, I'm firing on all cylinders, my memory's good, my speech is good. But if I go to the gym, I don't have that cognitive enhancement. So is it something that you just stick with, or do you try and adapt, or can you train into it to get that mental performance?
I think it's a bit of everything. You know, it can be genetic that can qualify it for sure. You know, some people will get in a race car and they'll be absolutely phenomenal. You know, they've just got that genetic potential and ability. And but then you'll get some people that will race that car all their lives and they won't even get out of the amateurs. It's just, you know, how people are made up. But I think to a certain degree, it's your perception, the way that you perceive certain things really, really helps. You can either look at it and go, oh my God, this is so hard. I hate it, but I have to do it because it's good for my health, blah, blah, blah. Or you can change that perception and say, wow, I'm really lucky that I have this opportunity, because I know there's people in third world countries that don't have that opportunity. They'll never set foot inside a gym. They will never be able to afford Hoka trainers and go for a run or whatever it may be. So we have to value that and feel very lucky. You can look at dried chicken and rice and go, oh my God, third time today, bland, boring. Or you can go, wow, I have the opportunity to choose the food that I want to eat that is going to heal my future and not harm my future. So I think it's a correlation of all these things. I like to sign up for things that I know that I'll suck at. Hence why I sign up for ultramarathons or Ironman or Spartan, because I'm like, yeah, I'll probably suck at it. Sign me up. But then you learn to adapt and enjoy it, and then look at what are the opportunities that you can get from it. Well, you're going to be fitter. You're going to put yourself into a new social pipeline. You're going to get more friendships from it, more connection, and then you change those values from it as opposed to the hardship of it.
Okay, so you're talking mindset, really, really important when it comes to exercise. Let's talk about an archetype or avatar that comes to you that says, listen, I've really been struggling with my mind. My mental performance is really, it's falling. We do this cognoscopy by Dale Bredesen with all our corporates and our business leaders, entrepreneurs. We need to try and keep them as sharp as possible. Other than going to the uniqueness of an individual, what type of aerobic, zone 1, zone 2, zone 5, how do you mix it up for specifically someone who says, listen, I want my brain to function at the highest level?
Yeah, so, you know, I'll always look at the absolute basics first. Like, are they releasing too much dopamine? Because the majority of people are now, you know, which dopamine, you know, over release will make you stupid. You know, let's face it. So a lot of people are picking up their device, they're attached to their computers, then they relax by watching TV. It's just overstimulation, even light, conversation. That's why I believe doing certain things like a 10-day Vipassana is very, very helpful, where you have this digital detox and dopamine detox to rebalance yourself. That, like, I just got back over the weekend. I went and stayed in a yurt in the mountains. There was no connection. I just read my book, took my dog for a walk, and enjoyed nature and the sounds, the sights, the smells, you know, readapting to my proper senses as opposed to overloading. So that's the first thing that I look at. As we know, sleep has become a byproduct of people's lives now. It's not a priority. So I'll always focus on sleep, because that's the body's way or the brain's way of detoxifying itself. And there's no way that all the nootropics that you can take in the world is not going to help if you haven't detoxed your brain through sleep first. So that's another thing that I'll look at. So it's a lot of these lifestyle factors, as opposed to, okay, we're going to quantify this, we're going to test this. We'll do that if we can't eradicate the issue from the primary sources first. And, you know, like, we know the food supply is very, very different. And this is how I came across it myself. I was diagnosed with mold toxicity. So, of course, I wasn't sleeping. I had brain fog, blah, blah, blah. That's what took me down the quote unquote biohacking protocol. This is going back in 2014. And as soon as I eradicated a lot of the foods that are conventional healthy foods, because I was bodybuilding back then, you know, and swapping the food that had antibiotics, pesticides, herbicides, you know, glyphosate, high omega-6s and a factory farm fish, blah, 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 and swapped it for grass-fed, humane-raised, wild-caught, organic. All of a sudden, not only did my inflammation decrease in my joints, in my tendons, that I thought was just from weight training, but my mental clarity came back. So, of course, when we feed our bodies, well, of course, we're feeding our brains at the same time. But a lot of people don't have that correlation. They will look at food and think, okay, maybe this will help me get abs. Maybe it'll help take the stress off my liver, blah, blah, blah. But they don't understand the stress that it can potentially lead to the brain. Because if you constantly have an inflammatory response in your gut, that could cause gut dysbiosis, leaky gut, blah, blah, blah. Then you can obviously get leaky brain or lead to a chemical imbalance in the brain. And that could lead to that brain fog too.
Sure. Okay, so you put lifestyle factors, sleep, and nutrition, obviously very, very important. Looking at overstimulation, we had Anna Lemke on the show, brilliant, brilliant podcast, Dopamine Nation, talking about dopamine, which is amazing. But let's talk about, you're on a walking treadmill. If you guys check on YouTube, Kris is on a walking treadmill, getting his steps in. Is it more important? Maybe give priorities, and I know it's individual again, but some people are going to want some type of frame. You want to get 8,000 steps for your brain function, or you want 3 sessions of aerobic exercise, in the week. You want, resistance training. You want heavy weights. Give us some type of, movement program that you think is really beneficial for mental performance. Because I know I'm going to get these questions from my community, my CEOs. We do a lot of work with corporate execs to say, listen, I'm not really worried about anything, that I just have to be sharp at work. AI is coming. I've got to be very creative. My imagination, my ability to analyze, synthesize, and put plans in place is really, really important. What type of movement protocol do they need to look at?
You could just sit in your butt all day and just take C-Max. You're good. That'll be fun. No, that's kind of the more biohacker way, isn't it? Yeah. Just be a static ornament and take all the supplements. No, in all seriousness, start every single day with some sort of form of movement. So whether that be HIIT training, whether it be like zone 2 training, just to get the blood flow to the brain. That's the main priority upon waking. Now, all dependent on your time zone. You may have to expose yourself to light because, I get up very early. I wake up around 4 to 5 o'clock. Here in the winter in Idaho, it's not getting light until 8 a.m. So I'll actually have like a retimer glasses or AWO glasses or something like that that's going to shine light into my eyes to help my brain cognitively start to function in the morning. But movement, always movement. So that could be 30 minutes steady state cardio. Or it could be, you could get on a carol bike or do some sort of HIIT training for about 15 minutes. Just get in the blood flow in the movement in the morning. The weight training, I always suggest a minimum of 3 times a week. So that could be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, because we know that's going to help with blood flow as well. It's going to help with detoxification. And obviously, we're looking at not only mental strength to help with longevity, but bone density, etc. When it comes to movement, like what I'm doing now, 10,000 steps a day. I get a lot more than that because I think it's very important to continue to get that blood flow to the brain for the mental clarity. And it also assists with the recovery. A lot of bodybuilders have this in their head that they need to stay static in order not to burn calories because they need those calories to burn muscle, to build muscle, which isn't true. It actually assists with recovery. You're getting rid of lactic acid. You are transporting the oxygen and nutrient-rich blood to the localized areas that you're training to allow you to recover. So I've always done cardio a lot of the time, twice a day for the past 25 years. I just think it's very important for the heart, but for the brain health as well.
Okay, so 3 sort of resistance training. And is that trying to go to full fatigue or full failure if someone's listening for their mental function, or is that just knock out 20 reps, 3 sets, and that'll be good enough to maintain some strength? Do you know what the research says for just people and their mental health and mental performance with regards to longevity or health span? Do they need to push themselves and try and develop muscle size and build muscle for mental health?
No, it's not essential. You can just simply maintain the muscle, dependent on how much muscle that you're holding, obviously, but you still want to kind of build a little bit, but you don't have to train to absolute failure. Training to absolute failure could create some fatigue there. So I always say, and you can look at some of the research, about 85 to 90% of failure. So let's say 12 reps is absolute failure. Maybe you're going to stop at 10 or 11.
Okay. Brilliant. And then looking at things like rebounding, I don't know if you know much about sort of mental performance, getting the lymphatic systems going. I'm sure as a bodybuilder that, retaining water and having edema and swelling is not really good. Do you know much about rebounding and mental performance?
When you mean rebounding, do you mean like the
Yeah,
trampoline?
yeah.
Yeah, great to do in the morning. Some people use a vibration plate. It's really good to get the bowels moving as well. It activates everything, really wakes everything up in the morning. So that's always good. I personally don't do the rebounding. I leave that to people like Ben Greenfield. I don't think it would suit me. But it's handy to have something like that at home if you don't go to a gym or you have a vibration plate for sure.
Mm. And what about, there's been a lot of research on these little movement bites and that, and doing air squats, or, doing calf raises, having these little movements that Rhonda Patrick speaks about, and the research. Is that something that you get your clients to do? And does it increase their metabolic rate?
Yeah, for sure. Of course, we're always trying to ensure that the client is metabolically active. That's why I have everybody, even if they're on, trying to reduce their biological age, they always have to do some form of resistance training. And we know by looking at, the blue zones, when you have people like in Okinawa where they don't sit, a lot of the people sit on the floor, the older generation. And they've measured that a lot of them sit and stand between 40 and 60 times a day. That is their resistance training. So a lot of clients that I work with, they're in the corporate world, they're sat in their asses all day. If they don't have a standing desk, I encourage them to do so, or sit on, a medicine ball. But I always get them to stop every 30 minutes or so and do 30 squats. So that could be seating squats. So they sit back down, stand up, and do that 30 times. Or if they feel embarrassed in the office, we call them toilet squats. So then they go to the toilet and they just squat down and do that 30 times just to keep movement, keep active. Because a lot of people, especially in the corporate world, in the afternoon, people in Silicon Valley, they're microdosing with either LSD or psilocybin just to keep the brain functioning, taking all these nootropics. Where a lot of the time it's because they've just become static ornaments and they're sat down all the time and they just need to get that blood flow back to the brain. And, some people initially, they say, oh God, but I'm too tired to get up and do movement in the morning. Well, that's why you're tired, because you aren't moving. Start moving and then you'll get your AA batteries.
Brilliant. I mean, you're an exercise guru and expert for a long time. The difference between exercising, saying doing weight training outside in the sun, with regards to mental performance, maybe testosterone, to indoor, is that something that you do, functional training exercises outside? And should people be doing that?
No, a lot of the places, if they're doing resistance training, they're not offering it indoors. And like I said, especially places like this in Idaho, where it's a colder climate, or in Wales, skiing down with rain all the time. I just encourage everybody to do their cardio outdoors. There's no reason why they can't go outside, leave the headphones at home, leave the phone at home, and just reconnect to their senses. Listen to the sound of the earth underneath your feet as you're running or walking. Listen to the sound of the birds. Smell the air. Try to reconnect with your senses, and obviously get exposure to vitamin D. It's going to help with your testosterone levels. It's going to help with your immune system. Maybe we'll look at testosterone precursors dependent on their testosterone levels. Could be pregnenolone, could be DHEA, vitamin D, increasing their fats, all of the above a lot of the time.
Okay. So anything else you want to add to sort of exercise? Can people over exercise and mentally they get really, really tired? Do you look at heart rate variability with your clients and say, hang on, you're overtraining? Or because I think that, you get guys that are these corporate leaders and they training hard and working hard, and HRV's sort of, it's plummeting. How do you assess that? Is someone sort of overtraining from a movement perspective, and that's going to affect their mental function?
Sure. Well, starting off with HRV, I'll always take that with a grain of salt, because some people are more sympathetic and other people are more parasympathetic dominant. So others are, people are going to be very, very different. So, people like myself and say Dr. Dom, we're very sympathetic dominant. So our HRV is generally going to be a lot lower than other people, but we take the average. So I look at their average and see if it's starting to plummet from there, flatline, or increase, and make changes accordingly. And a lot of it comes down to their lifestyle. Do they have kids? Do they have a stressful job? What's their sleep like? Are they shift workers? Blah, blah, blah. We have to take a lot of that into account. Now, when it comes to training, of course, yeah, we can overtrain. You've done ultramarathons. I've done ultramarathons. You know, there's no secret there that our testosterone levels can drop. You know, our inflammatory markers go up. Sometimes the thyroid can downregulate. So we have to look at all these things to see what is the perfect point. I've had clients train 6 days a week without a problem because they have no other stress or outside stresses in their life. They're so laid back, they could fall over. They're just really chilled out individuals. We'll have other people that are more highly strung. They work late. They juggle more things than they think they should. And, you know, but they place it upon themselves. Some people I've noticed are kind of addicted to stress and they seek it because they just can't sit and be. So I take all of that into account, and that gives me a better correlation of whether to pull that person's training back or to increase it. For me, I'm one of those people, when I compete in Ironman triathlon, I have to do the majority of my training as HIIT. So I'm going to go for a swim this afternoon, and I'm just going to do a lot of sprint work in there and not spend so much time. If I spend more time in the gray zone, I notice my testosterone levels start to drop. The only time that I kind of break that promise to myself is if I'm preparing for an event that I'm spending a lot of time cycling because I have to get used to being in the saddle. But that's pretty much it.
But you've gone from bodybuilding, and maybe give us a little bit of your history, how you got into triathlons, and was that something that you wanted to sort of experience and enjoy? I mean, I've been running, I've done 40,000 Ks on the road in the last 28 years, and now I'm spending more time with functional training and more time in the gym and trying to put size on, trying to stay lean. But we've almost got a role reversal, or I'm sure you're in the gym anyway. But what's been the change for you going sort of the aerobic and anaerobic cardiovascular exercise?
Well, I've always, like I said, I've always loved cardio. I've just been one of those people that I don't get bored doing cardio. I think maybe because I used to daydream so much in school, I find it easier to kind of daydream when I'm doing cardiovascular activity. And it's my active meditation for me. So, you know, I kind of like that. And sometimes I can be quite reactive. So I had, you know, some people telling me there's no way that you can do like endurance sports or triathlons being 220 pounds at 5'8". So sometimes I'll get a little bit defensive. I'm like, oh yeah, you think I can't do it? Sign me up. I'm going. So that's what initiated the first Ironman that I did. I gave myself 6 months. Within that 6 months, I did a sprint triathlon, then a half Ironman, and then a full Ironman. And I kind of got hooked on it after that. I really enjoyed it, but I realized I had to change my training protocol a little bit in order for it to be sustainable. I like a sense of urgency. So we just found out that Boise is going to bring back the 70.3 after a 10-year hiatus. Now, registration will start next week. However, I'll probably only start training for that maximum 3 months out, because I like that sense of urgency towards something, and I don't like to spread it out too much because I know that can have a negative impact on me trying to reverse my biological age and increase my health span. So it's always a balancing act on how to do it and involve myself in it. And I guess you know, number one, it was a challenge, but number two, now I just love being a bigger person, but saying, you know what, I'm going to go out for an 8-mile run. You know, I just love that because there's very few of us that can. But I'm very cautious. Like a lot of my running is on a curved treadmill, a woodway curve. So that is engaging a lot of my posterior chain, my hamstrings, my glutes that usually tend to switch off if you're not running correctly, as you'd know. So I'm really working on my gait there. And I'll always run off-road otherwise. You know, I've got 100 miles of trails here. And, you know, so I'm really taking advantage of the non-stressful situations, being a bigger person on my joints. You know, I go and get stem cells every now and again. I'll cross the border to Mexico or Costa Rica to get topped up because I know I'm not going to slow down anytime soon. You know, I've just turned 50 recently. I'm like, man, I feel great. And maybe some of that is contributed because of the movement. I'm always getting synovial fluid into the joints. And it's a balance. It's not all one thing, because I've found that's when injuries usually occur. If you're just doing that one thing over and over and over again, injuries can occur. But if you're doing a plethora of different things, your body's more adapt.
Yeah, it's just looked at my numbers. My numbers were going in the wrong direction with all this running that I was doing, and doing like 50, 60 kilometers a week. And it was just not good for my health span. So I can sort of attest to what happens, I think, if you just stick to one type of activity, especially this chronic long-term sort of cardio that I was doing, and many of my athletes and many of my clients do. So I do want to know that when you started Ironman, did you start losing muscle mass? Was it difficult to maintain? Did you start losing strength? Because that's the concern for a lot of my clients and patients.
No, I didn't. I stayed at 220 pounds. I actually went to a university here, had the DEXA scan, did the FTP, lactate threshold. I was able to maintain my muscle mass throughout the entirety, and that was my goal. But what I did was brought my volume of training down. So initially I thought, because I like to train with a lot of repetitions, I thought, well, if I train with a lot of repetitions still, surely that will help with my rotation of the bike. It'll help with the gait of the run. It'll help with the swim, obviously, because everything is reps. I'll just do everything unilaterally as opposed to laterally a little bit more now. But I found that I overtrained really quick. I was overtraining, my testosterone levels were dropping. So I reevaluated and changed my training and went for more compound movements. I went for much, much lower repetitions, and I decreased my training frequency. So I went from weight training from like 5 to 6 days a week down to maximum of 4 days a week. And then when it came to my cardiovascular training, as I mentioned to begin with, I was doing the typical gray zone, a lot of miles, a lot of time. I can't remember how many hours I was putting in a week, probably like 10 hours, something stupid. When it came to all the cardiovascular stuff, the 3 disciplines, I brought that down and started focusing a lot more on sprints and high intensity and less time out in the field or in the pool. And I found that really allowed me to bounce back and regain that muscle fullness that I felt that I was starting to lose. I felt like I was flattening out. And so that really helped. I just had to change the volume and the style and the frequency of my weight training to correlate with both disciplines.
Okay, and so that's something that's quite nuanced that you're probably doing with your own clients, and that, which is really, really important. But those 4 sessions now that you're doing, just take us through how it would work. Do you do chest twice a week? Do you combine that with tries? And, what are the thoughts of, you only get 6 repetitions, and to failure, then you can only have hypertrophy or the building of muscles? Give us sort of your program, number one, and some of the sort of the misnomers or some of the myths that have been broken through your long history as a bodybuilder.
Sure. So generally I'll train arms and shoulders together. I'll do chest and back together, legs and abs, and that's it, and then repeat. So there'll be one muscle group that will get trained twice in that week. And then the next week, it'll be another muscle group that gets trained twice in that week, if that makes sense.
Okay, so take us to Monday. Monday, you do, when you say arms, it's biceps, triceps, shoulders, one session.
Exactly. One session.
Okay. Is that
And then
45 minutes? 45 minutes, an hour, pushing it hard?
Yeah, it's about 50 to 60 minutes. 50 to 60 minutes. Rest periods are very, very short because, I've got a good cardiovascular engine. So I'm able to recover very easy. When I train with a lot of people, it's not so much the weights that kind of hurt them. It's they can't keep up with the intensity. They're just not used to the intensity. So I don't rest much between sets. And then the next day it'd be chest and back. Sometimes that will be supersetting the antagonistic muscle. So I'll go straight from chest to a back movement, rest. Straight from chest to a back movement and rest. And maybe it'll be reversed the next week. And sometimes it's a lat dominant day. Other days, it'll be, and the following week, it may be a trap dominant day. So I'll always start with traps or lats, just to make sure that they are prioritized to their own days. And then it'll be legs. So I'll take a day off after that. So 2 days on, then I'll take 1 day off where it's just active rest day. When I say active rest day, cardio. I'm doing cardio on those days. And I do cardio on every day. And then I'll go back into the gym and I'm hitting legs and abs now. So legs gets devoted because it's nearly half your body getting eaten up in one go. So that takes a lot of time to hit the hamstrings, quads, the glutes, a lot of compound movements in there, and then obviously calves. And then I'm hitting some abs, upper abs and lower abs. So, hanging leg raises, crunches, sit-ups, the standard protocol. And then I'll repeat what I did on Monday. So arms and shoulders on that Friday. So I'm hitting one muscle group twice a week. Okay.
And in the weekend, you just doing cardio.
Weekend is just cardio. Yeah, weekend could be cardio. Sometimes I'm focusing on a lot of recovery. So I could be going in a sensory deprivation tank. I could be doing hyperbaric oxygen. Throughout the week, I've got a sauna here. I've got an ice bath. I got a PEMF. So I'm doing that mostly on a daily basis anyway. But then I may go somewhere to do a HBOT or sensory deprivation tank, something like that, just to assist with further recovery. Maybe a couple of yoga sessions. That's what I'll focus on.
So it seems like, and are you still building size, or is just strength? Are you maintaining? Because look at someone like Alex Hormozy says, you got to train an area sometimes twice, 3 times a week. Or is that just his genetic sort of profile? Because some weeks you're only getting one body part in that week, and some you're getting two. And that seems to be more than enough for you and your clients, I assume.
Yeah, for sure. Like I always say, if you're training with absolute intensity, it's going to be very difficult for you to train body parts twice a week. It's going to lead to overtraining. And a lot of people that will be discouraged by that will say that's not possible. I'll say to them, come and train with me for a week and see if you'll be able to train every body part twice, because it's not going to happen. Because, for instance, if you hit legs on a Friday, your legs are still sore usually on that Monday, from breaking down that muscle tissue. I've had sore legs for 25 years. But, if you look at any top professional bodybuilder that's standing on the Arnold Classic or the Olympia stage today, they're all training one body part once a week. If they've got a weakness, then they possibly will train that muscle group every 5 days.
Wow, that's incredible. That's absolutely amazing. There's this
a lot of it is in recovery. As long as you've got a hammer, you've got a nail, you can either tap it or you can just smash it. It's both going to do the same job, but one is going to be more efficient. So you've got to break down that muscle tissue in one shot. And then your priority is just to recover. Your recovery dictates your performance and how your physique develops. So the focus should be on recovery, assuming that you have trained to absolute failure, as if your life depends on it, or you are as desperate for that last rep as you are desperate to breathe. That's the mental capacity that you have to go in there with.
Sure. But say you do legs on a Friday, Kris. Now you push so hard, your legs are still sore, and then you want to build, both strength and size. Then you go on Saturday and you go and do an 8-mile run. Now, is that not causing some type of more, especially if it's a bit of downhills, it's a trail, now you're causing eccentric activity on those muscles? Is that going to prevent the strengthening and the hypertrophy of those muscles by doing the cardio on the weekend?
No, usually it all depends what sort of rep range that you're running within. So if you are obviously training and targeting your fast twitch muscle fibers, but now you're going for a run, that's going to be more your type 2A, type 2B muscle fibers. So you shouldn't get too much of a crossover there or cross-contamination. When I actually prepare for an Ironman or triathlon or run or whatever, to better adapt and create more efficiency, so I would train legs, and then immediately following for my cardio, that's when I'll go for my run, or that's when I'll go for my cycle. If I've just trained lats, for instance, and triceps, I will then go for my swim. So I'm swimming or running on fatigued legs. So come race day, I'm fresh because I'm not weight training before I do that. So I'm creating another form of adaptation that's going to be harder through training and easier on race day.
That's interesting, because most people in the gym, even myself, having been at medical school, been exercising for a long time in the gym, they normally do the cardio. You're on the bike or you're on the treadmill before, then you go and do your weight training. And that's sort of the traditional method, isn't it?
Yeah, warm up beforehand. And I'm not saying don't warm up.
Yeah.
Just don't fatigue yourself. Fatigue yourself straight after, but pre-fatigue yourself through the weight training.
Okay,
You know, because
fascinating.
it's great to go running on tired legs, because if you go running then on fresh legs, it's like, wow, this is easy.
I like that. And you're saying it doesn't cause any damage or any detrimental effects to the hypertrophy or building of muscle at all.
No, providing that you're getting plenty of essential amino acids into you. So, you know, of course, it's going to be very, very difficult to eat all your amino acids, especially when you're performing cardio. So whenever I go for a long bike ride or run, I
Mm.
have my drink and I've got essential amino acids in there the whole time.
Yeah, little keys here we got to hear so that we make sure that we actually those amino acids to help recover and rebuild and make sure that there's a protein available. So that's interesting. And do you how many do you take a day or what type of dosage do you take? We've been giving free aminos and essential amino acids for many years. Believe it's better than branched chain amino acids. I don't know what you feel about that.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
yeah, let us know how many. What's your dosage? Because this is, having a look at spoken to so many people, the lack of protein that people are taking, quality protein, and then they say, listen, they're not strong or they're not building. That could be a huge factor if you're training at this sort of this full fatigue, you're feeling sore, you're still running, but your protein intake is so good that you're actually causing the adaptive changes that you need.
Yeah, so I look at about 20 grams of essential amino acids. Now, keep in mind, I'm eating a lot as well. I'm eating a lot of food. I don't have a problem with appetite at all. You know, my appetite is massive. I always want to eat all the time, but I'm metabolically active. But to ensure that I'm trying to stay as anti-catabolic as possible, and I'm trying to recover as well as humanly possible, and because of my activity and the intensity in which I train, I find about 25 grams of essential amino acids, especially someone of my size, is the perfect sweet spot for me, you know? And,
Brilliant.
some people, you go out with a lot of triathletes, they're just focusing on glycogen storage, and that's absolutely fine. We still need to replenish our glycogen, but a lot of the time the protein or the amino acids are not prioritized, and they should be, and our gut health. Because when we are performing a lot of cardio, a lot of people have gut issues. They can't digest, they can't hold anything down. To ensure that, making sure that they've got good, clean, healthy gut, maybe taking immunoglobulins or anything like that. Even glutamine can help with the gut issues. So making sure that that's a priority too.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So you spoke about CMAX and some of these peptides. What are your favorite for mental performance that you've found with yourself and your clients?
CMAX has been great for me,
Mm.
and it works well. It works well with my clients. You could stack that with something like caffeine or choline.
Mm.
Choline seems to work very, very well in synergy with that. That's what I found. And one thing I failed to mention before when he was on about mental clarity, I will generally ask a client to do like a liver flush, a liver detox, because sometimes they're so clogged up, and the liver is known as like the emotional hormone that can sometimes really help with clarity. If I'm clogged up and I'm like, God, maybe I've got some gallstones, I need to clear my liver. I have great vision, I've got 20/20 vision, but I feel that my eyesight is so much clearer the day following a liver flush. My mental clarity is there. So that's one thing that I will generally have clients do
Mm.
to ensure that, they're not bunged up, they're not plugged up, and everything assimilates so much more efficiently.
Okay, what's your liver flush then quickly before we move on to the other type of things that you use, supplements and sort of any nootropics?
Yeah, so when it comes to liver flush, I learned a lot of this from, I don't know if you know Adam Parker. Adam Parker helped me a lot with my liver flushes. He's a great, great guy to speak to. He's the
Mm.
expert when it comes to this. So generally, it'll start several days before, where you're taking in a lot of malic acid, for instance, to help the bile flow, dandelion tea, MSM. And then, the day before, basically, it'll just mostly be carbohydrates. So I'll start in the morning with a couple of like fried eggs or something like that. And then I'll have another meal after that. That'll just mostly be oats and maybe a little bit of honey. And then I'll fast. I'll fast. And during that fast, I'm drinking now malic acid. Of course, you can have like apple juice or something like that, but I don't want the sugar. I'm just having the malic acid in some water. So then that helps the bile, loosen itself. And then I'll start the following day off with like a coffee enema with some more malic acid, and I'll put some MSM in the bucket as well. And then following that is usually when the flush happens, and you get rid of a lot of gallstones.
Sure. And you notice anything specifically when you get rid of those gallstones in there?
It's just mental clarity and eyesight. That's what I notice. But it all depends. If I feel like if I pass a lot of gallstones, then yeah, I really feel the difference. If I don't feel it as much. Much like, someone can take NAD, but their NAD levels are fine. They may not notice the energy increase. But somebody who has very, very low NAD levels, they're going to notice that.
Yeah, got you. So what about things like methylene blue or any other sort of things that you add to nootropics wise, or medicinal mushrooms or anything like that that you found really, really good for mental performance?
Yeah, some of it's for mental performance, but a lot of it could be for neuroplasticity. So I do understand that there's a lot of neurotoxins in our chain of food, pollutants and stuff like that now. So I will take lion's mane in my coffee, or the collagen that I'm taking at the moment has functional mushrooms in there. I'll take that. I take something called a Leuco Blue, which has gold in it. It also has, I believe, NAD in it. So I'll have that in with my hydrogen water. So I'll have my hydrogen water tablets in the morning. I'll throw that in there as well and knock that back. And I'll usually have some carbon C60 during that time. Other than that, it could be alpha GPC. It could be acetylcholine. Acetylcholine is something that I really like because obviously it has nootropic effect, but it has neuroplasticity effect or neuroprotective effect. And the one thing that I'm a huge fan of at the moment that I really have noticed the difference is creatine combined with GAA, guanidino acidic acid, because that allows the creatine to be absorbed not just through one pathway that monohydrate absorbs through, but four pathways. It crosses the blood-brain barrier much more beneficial, increases BDNF, and the neuroprotective properties of that is just far superior. So I really, really like that combination. You just got to make sure that it is combined with B vitamins as well, like B12, B6, folic acid, just to bring the homocysteine levels back down.
Okay, you're talking about GAA. I've never heard of this. How do you pronounce that?
Yeah, guanidino acidic acid. Guanidino acidic acid. There's a company in Serbia. Is this Serbia? I believe it's Serbia. That has this product called cregatine, and that is the combination of that.
Okay, brilliant. Anything else you want to mention with regards to peptides or stacks or paracetams or any of these things that you found that have been very beneficial for mental performance?
I haven't really messed around with a lot of them. There's what's the other one? CMAX and CMAX.
Cerebrolysin.
No. There's another one. It sounds like CMAX. Sounds like CMAX. I'm trying to think. It's used in combination with CMAX quite a lot. I've never used it, but there's a lot of people that use that combination. Sorry, it's gone away from me. A lot of the peptides that I've suggested for people to utilize are more like, growth hormone secretagogues, because a lot of people immediately go for synthetic forms when they could go for a secretagogue that can actually help their body release its own growth hormone. Same with testosterone, like tesamorelin or something along those lines. Those are the kind of the peptides. And of course, I deal with a lot of people who have underlying injuries, inflammation. So then it's usually the body protective compounds.
Okay. In terms of biohacks, are you using infrared saunas? Are you using cold plunges for mental performance? Are you putting infrared up your nose, in your ears? Are you using an infrared helmet? Or what are the greatest biohacks that you found with regards to mental performance?
Yeah, so I am using a sauna. I've got a sauna in my backyard. I've got a Morozko ice plunge in my backyard as well. I've got a PEMF that I get on in the evenings. Yeah, so I do use the red light. I use a couple of different red light devices. I have the full body panel. I think Red Light Rising might even be from South Africa, I believe. But anyway, I've got the full panel, and I also use something called the LumaFlex when I'm traveling, because it's a handheld device, and I find that that's really helpful for helping set the circadian rhythm with the non-flicker blue light in the morning. You can see I've got the incandescent bulbs throughout the house. Looks like a brothel in my house. So I'm not dealing with that constant flicker that can raise cortisol levels, because I know my cortisol levels are going to spike when I'm doing cardio or HIIT work, workouts, ice bath. So I'm doing whatever I can to bring those cortisol levels down during the day. So I've got mental clarity. I've got a little bit more energy, and I have a lot of energy to burn. I wake up with a lot of energy. The things that I would say that really help with mental clarity is, as weird as it sounds, and it may sound woo-woo, is earthing, grounding. So I have earthing mats in my house. I wear earthing trainers. Whenever I have the opportunity, I'll ground myself, usually in the evening, take the shoes and socks off. That really helps with my sleep. I've noticed that I'm one of these people that is electrosensitive to EMFs, to non-native EMFs and Wi-Fi, etc. I'm one of those people. If I don't earth myself, I don't sleep. I feel there's a disruption in my mental patterns. And I've been able to quantify this with my ring. Because I remember I was in Mumbai about 2 years ago, and I was earthing myself in the morning, walking on the beach, but I still wasn't able to sleep in the evening. And I've got everything set up in my hotel room to try to mitigate all the damage. I've got all the gadgets there. And I spoke to our friend Tim Gray, and he said, this may sound weird, just try earthing yourself in the evening as well. So I started going for a walk on the beach in the evening. And this can't be a placebo effect, because I'm measuring it on my ring, my HRV, my sleep. My sleep started to improve immediately. So which told me that maybe I'm more electrosensitive and I'm absorbing a lot of these EMFs. Instead of allowing them to penetrate through me, they're penetrating more into me. So I think there's a strong correlation there. And that really helped with my mental clarity, because of course you don't sleep, you're not going to perform.
Yeah, it's pretty profound that you spoke about fasting and that. Do you use ketones for mental performance, or just do you fast at all? Has that helped your mental clarity, and has it hurt your ability to build and maintain size?
Yeah, so it's being between a rock and a hard place, because I have found when I've gone like on a little bit more of a keto diet or a carnivore diet, I feel so much more better mentally. I really, really do. However, it does negatively affect me physically, because I rely on a lot of glycogen to keep the fullness in the muscle, to keep the strength there, to keep the physical energy. So I'm not able to fire on both cylinders. I've tried to do ketones and fasting and put some glycogen in there by doing like a cyclical approach to like the keto diet, having carbohydrates in the evening to help release the serotonin so I sleep. And usually once I've done my cardio in the morning, I'm back into ketosis anyway. So I feel great mentally, but it just doesn't help me as much physically. And I've tried like the ketone IQ and whatnot, which is good, but I find it only works more efficiently if I've depleted myself of the carbs. When it comes to fasting, yes, I do fast on my non-training days. I've done like 5-day fasts and all that. I didn't really feel too good on it. But I find if I fast on my non-training days for like 16, 18 hours, I feel good. I just call it a controlled fast, because during that time, I'm still taking my essential amino acids. So it's not something that I'd say a Dr. Sachin Panda or Jason Fung is going to, approve. However, for somebody who's participating in physical performance that still maybe wants to have some form of autophagy, maybe we'll include some supplements like spermidine to help that fasting mimicking autophagy, jump in a little bit more. But because a lot of my clients are trying to think of performance, regain muscle or build muscle, essential amino acids are usually included.
Okay, it sounds like, and I'm getting this message loud and clear. If you're listening out there, you're an athlete. And if you're not an athlete, you need to get it, the protein requirements and the amino acid requirements. And I think that's a very important formula to work out. How do you assess if someone's actually getting enough protein and essential amino acids? Because I mean, you're taking, what did you say, 20 grams or 25 grams? Obviously, you're eating a lot of protein in that. Do you look at kidney function, or do you get it through the DEXA and sort of get to the minimal effective dose? How do you work that one out?
Yeah, I'll usually look at their body composition. I'll look at their blood work in the beginning to make sure everything's functioning correctly. Enzymes or bun levels are generally going to be elevated slightly because they are working out. That's going to be normal. ALT is going to be a little bit higher because they're creating so much waste products. Nothing to be totally concerned about when the doctor looks at the numbers. It's usually because they don't understand that individual is working out. But usually I'll just look at their body composition. They have to give me their body composition every 2 weeks. I'll look at that and assess if we need to add more protein to their diet or lessen it.
Are you talking about 1.5 grams to 2 grams per kilogram, or what is sort of your average start with someone?
Yeah, now I've been in the US for such a long time, I go by pounds. So it's usually about 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight.
Okay, brilliant. Transcranial electrical stimulation or transcranial magnetic stimulation or photobiomodulation to the brain. Bit of a tongue twister there, sorry, Kris. But anything specific to treating the organ, the brain itself that you've had that's beneficial? We had Patrick Porter on the podcast. We do a lot of brain tap in this country. It's actually our #1 app that we recommend to corporates just because it's so easy, it's practical, it's affordable, and people can use it, and they use it passively, which is really helpful because a lot of them don't have energy to meditate consistently. But what has been sort of good for your clients from a direct stimulation on the nervous system?
Yeah, you answered it actually. The brain tap. The brain tap has been phenomenal. I've spoken to Patrick on several occasions, and a lot of people, because they're not able to switch themselves off and be in a quiet room and just think of something, the monkey mind plays into it too much. So if they're able to actually focus on something, could be Patrick Porter's voice, and then with the light simulation, the sound, the binaural beats, usually they'll get into that meditative state so much more efficiently. I do ask the client to download the meditations and not just switch their phone on and then get distracted and go down that rabbit hole or have the alerts come on. So that usually works. When it comes to photobiomodulation, yeah, there's a product called Thrive that's owned by Sarah. I don't know Sarah, if you know Sarah. That is a headset of red light therapy. She's been going around to events for the past couple of years, but I think the actual launch of it just happened now within the last couple of weeks. So that's a great device. I haven't had so many clients use it because it hasn't been readily publicly available, but I actually like it. I have tried the photobiomodulation, like in the ears, up the nose. Didn't really, I borrowed Ben's products. I can't remember the name of the products that he had when we were traveling recently together. Didn't really get anything from it, but maybe it's something that you need to do with consistency. It's not something that you're going to feel straight away overnight. Much like they say that if you use the red lights, particularly for women who have lower thyroid, using the red light can be healing. One of the reasons why they say that women generally have more thyroid issues is at the office, they don't have a collar on, the blouse is open. Now the artificial light from the computer screen is penetrating through the receptors in the skin, and obviously that is bad. So the red can be healing. So my wife has been doing that for a couple of years, and she feels that that has not only benefited her, but from the numbers that she's gained, through her blood work, it seems to be working too. However, there's a few things that she's doing that helps now with her thyroid.
Yeah, interesting one. Yeah, we've used a lot of red light, the Flex Beam. That's a great product over the the LED for women, especially.
I used to use a Flex Beam.
Yeah, great product. So anything else we haven't sort of touched on with regards to mental health and mental performance that you can think that really moves the needle?
Well, I think a lot of people just need to look back at their lifestyle because, we live in an era where people just want to go for supplements or gadgets. And if they're paying for something, they feel that's where they're getting the value. You've been to these biohacking events. It seems like a lot of people have a disposable income. But when you talk to them and ask them what's their diet like, what's their workout schedule, a lot of the time it isn't there. Maybe they haven't looked at their lifestyle. So I always suggest, like I said, look at your, how much screen time that you're exposing yourself to. Now, that may not just be scrolling, it could be work as well. And now when you compound that with Amazon, scrolling, social media, answering emails, that is a drug. You know, if you were an addict, but you needed to go and get drugs, then that's going to be an effort.
Mm,
We don't have to get the drug. It's there in our hand all the time. And you've got cocaine, you've got, you know, you've got marijuana, you've got cocaine, you know, heroin. It's all there on the bloody phone.
mm,
And that is one of the reasons why the major reason I feel that a lot of people are getting a brain fog. It's
mm,
overconsumption of these devices. And then obviously that affects their sleep, because if the brain is getting used to activating dopamine, how can you relax when you've turned the phone off? You go to bed and the brain is awaiting that activation all the time. So it's never completely detoxifying itself.
sure. Well, what a podcast. Really just info packed and a lot of wisdom of many, many years in the biohacking and training fields. Really want to declare favor and blessing over you, Kris. I don't know if you've ever come to South Africa, if you would think there's so many ways we could run a retreat here, a biohacking retreat, and go up and do a safari and go up to Vic Falls. What is your view on coming to Africa, you know?
I absolutely love Africa. I was there for some years. I just went there by myself. I was there for about 3.5 weeks. I'd had a very busy year, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to go there. And I'd always dreamt of going there. You know, I stayed camped in a safari. I went and jumped off the bungee at Victorian Falls, which was absolutely phenomenal. What a sight that was. I could
Yeah.
have done it immediately following. I would love to. One of the things that I've always wanted to do, and this could be a potential retreat, is stay with a traditional tribe and just live how they do, because that would kind of like be a, you know, a vipassana in itself,
Mm,
and take us back to our ancestral heritage on how we lived before we were surrounded with today's
mm,
technology. I know we have to use today's technology, but let's not allow it to use us. But I think that would be absolutely
mm.
phenomenal.
Yeah, well, having you on the podcast, having been on the podcast and your networks that you've got there, maybe I've got to stick something together with the Khoisan. They're down in the Cape, one of the oldest tribes in Africa, and put something together. Maybe we can talk offline a bit, because I do think this continent has something to really offer Europeans and offer Americans that's very, very different. And once you come to Africa, I think you know, Africa gets in your soul, and you long to come back to this country. I know Dr. Dom, he's been on the podcast. His brother's in Cape Town.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's a multiple connections here. Maybe we can put something together and structure it for your guys' communities.
I'd absolutely love that. That would be
Mhm.
absolutely phenomenal. I'm doing a retreat next year, and we actually asked Dom if he wanted to be a part of that. I think
Mm.
it's going to be myself, Jay Campbell, Sean Wells,
Mm.
Jeff Daubeny. So yeah, it'd be phenomenal. Would be absolutely honored to do that.
Mm. Yeah, I must actually have a look at it. But yeah, thank you so much, Kris, and really the work that you do and the legend you are. Please check out. We'll put the links to Chris's, you know, socials and that. He's a monster of a man. When I say that, he's built like a brick house, lean as can be, and has been in this space. And I'm like really excited to have someone who's so strong, so big, running races and doing Ironman. Because you know the understanding out there is that you can't do it, but you're proving people wrong, and you've got obviously the different ways with regards to training, the nuances, and maybe if people want coaching or they want to connect with you, where's the best way to connect with you, Kris?
I'm quite receptive on Instagram, so they
Okay.
can message me on Instagram. That's fine.